So they'll always have water and incense before the Pharaoh. Everybody's got their white linen, ritually clean.
No one doubts his strength now.
They wear the kohl kind of like we wear sunglasses to protect the sun. And that's the famous wailing women that we talked about at funerals. But here it's his mother. So that's a Nubian mercenary that was in the army, and he brought back the Horus pendant for his friend's wife. But you get that surreal, it's green, but they're living in mud brick. And that's the average Egyptian. And there's our serpent. We've talked a lot about that. The burning one, the raised one, the seraph. So this is actually a very famous speech they're going to give in Egyptian, so you can hear what Egyptian sounds like. See what I mean? They're trying to make him look like a god. This Canaanite speaks Egyptian, coincidentally.
The Prince of Kadesh. Over the next 20 years, the Pharaoh Thutmose III fought and won another 17 campaigns.
And then he died. So that's probably good. We still have his mummy. He's got that big old honker of a nose. But that gives you more of a historical setting of what it would be like to go to an appearance before Pharaoh. You're not just walking up to his throne and having a little chat. This is a very staged affair. You don't get that close to him for lots of reasons. But I've stood in the balcony and talked, and you can hear really well in the courtyard both ways. It's funny, on the inside, it's got inscriptions all over the place about Pharaoh, and it's, you're great, you're wonderful, you're so magnificent. It's like they're pumping him up right before he stands. So if you ever go to Egypt, Medinet Habu, there's Ramses III still standing. Yeah. Probably even a little grander than Thutmose III. Ramses II had more wealth, material wealth, even than Thutmose III. So it would have been a grand affair. Ramses II's mortuary temple is still standing, but it's in more ruined state. I'll show you pictures of it later, and we haven't found the window of appearance for it. But that's most likely where they went to see him. Now, certainly Moses would have been on the other side of all that, like the courtiers escorting Moses down the hallway, but now he's on the outside, and probably looks a lot like that Canaanite guy did. The long hair. Their complexion isn't so different from the Egyptians, but certainly their dress, body hair, Egyptians would say smell, would be very different. So, with that setting, let's go back to it. They dutifully quote, this is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, so what Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel says, let my people go so that they might hold a festival, a Hag. This is a sacrifice festival where they would sacrifice lambs in my honor in the wilderness. So it's not only let my people go, like we famously quote, but it's let my people go back and be avad. Let him go back and sacrifice. Let him go back to worship. Let him go back to the garden. And then Pharaoh's response is that so? Retorts Pharaoh. And who is this Yahweh? Who is this Lord? Why should I listen to him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. Now, you have to sort of put in context what Ramses is saying here. It's not that he has never heard of this God. I mean, that's part of it. But Pharaoh is the chief priest for every temple in Egypt. When they do depictions in the temple of the people making offerings to the gods, it's always Pharaoh doing it. Now, he appoints priests in his absence, and he can't get to all those temples, but at the end of the day, it's his responsibility to make sure the gods have their provisions, so the gods, each in their own capacity, bless Egypt. That's sort of his covenant to maintain Ma'at in the world, to maintain balance. And so when he says, I don't know, he says, you know, I know the gods. I know Ra, I know Ptah, I know Isis, I know Osiris, I know all these gods. I've never met yours at any of these mixers that we have. No, it doesn't say that, but you know, it's not that it's another religion. This is not in the world of the divine that he operates. He's not going to sort of come out of stage role up there with everybody and say, I don't know that God. It's not something he's going to let happen. Yeah. Yep. It is. It's very good. Yeah, it is. Lech lecha. Let's get going. It's just lech here. Go. So they do seem to be playing off of that, like go in the wilderness and go like Abraham left. Yeah, that's a really good catch. But Pharaoh's having none of it. And this is exactly what God said was going to happen. But Aaron and Moses persisted. The God, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us, they declared. So let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness so that we can offer sacrifice. This was alluded by the Hag title for the festival, but here we have it full bore. They're going to offer lambs, Moses will tell us, to the Lord our God. If you don't, he will kill us with a plague or with a sword. Okay, remember what I said before? When they repeat and when they add things. So this was not mentioned before. And it's interesting, Moses expresses this as a threat to who? To his own people. Right, this is our God. Presumably he's responsible for us. If we don't do what he wants, we're going to pay the price. Why would he say that? Why is that going to convince Pharaoh of anything? Exactly. Now, do you think you could stand in front of the window of appearance and say, if you don't do what I want, God will strike you down? Yeah. That's going to be like trying to drive your car into the White House last night. You know, you're not going to get too far with that. Although it's interesting, we get there. So this is the first roll. This is the first First conversation, Israel is not ready. The elders are not ready. Moses probably isn't ready. He's trying to negotiate. His first out of the get-go is not the staff, or it's you're going to lose your workforce. You're going to lose all these people trying to build cities for you. Pharaoh replied, Moses and Aaron, why are you distracting the people from their tasks? Get back to work. So there it is again, Tom. Go to work. Go. This is not, the Egyptians would think, the way of the world. Pharaoh gives the commands, and it's for all the people to honor Pharaoh's command, whether it's the native Egyptians or the foreign-born that are living in Egypt. They are to carry out his work projects. Remember, they're not quite slaves in the classic 19th century Western experience. Hebrews would have had their own homes, their own cities. They were called into government service to pay tax in labor. Now, they also have to pay in produce and livestock, but a certain percentage of the population, sort of in a random selected like the draft, you have to go serve the state during the 3 months of the Nile inundation. And so Pharaoh is sort of talking that language. He's not just saying the Hebrews got to get back to work. Everybody's got to do their work. Don't disrupt the natural order. Don't upset Ma'at. Get back to work. Look, there are many of your people in the land, and you are stopping them from their work. So he's not budging. He doesn't want to talk about the other God. He's here to maintain order. That same day, Pharaoh sent this order to the Egyptian. I have slave drivers. What do they have? It should be like taskmasters. We talked about this before. Foreman is not, slave drivers. Okay. Egyptians are really bureaucrats. They love the title overseer. Like, you have these nobles that are buried, and they were like overseer of the king's toilet, equipment, and overseer of the kitchen vegetables. I mean, everybody's an overseer of something or other. They loved it. But they have foremen, and then they have overseers, and then they have chief overseers. So we've seen this with the way that it worked for the midwives, that they could sort of work their way down the bureaucracy. So the Egyptians would definitely have overseers of labor gangs. Not to get too off here, but we have actually found now, they found it in the Red Sea, daily notes for some of these taskmasters when they were building the pyramids, Khufu's big ones. If you want to look them up online, they have a great title, The Red Sea Scrolls, not the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Red Sea Scrolls. Now, they're boring, but they're also incredible information because they're notations. Today, the work crew moved these many blocks. Today, we're in this location. Tomorrow, we're going in this location. We moved this many bricks. But it's that kind of hard evidence that proves it wasn't aliens that were doing it. It was people paying their taxes for Pharaoh. So that's much, much, much earlier than this period we're talking about here. But Pharaoh is still using this system. He's going to his overseers. He gives the order. And it passes to the Israelite foreman, do not supply any more straw for brick making. Make the people get it themselves, but still require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That's why they are crying out, let us go. So, Tom, there it is again, and offer sacrifice to our God. Load them down with more work. And that, we'll run across it again, but that load down is the same word that we were talked about for hardening. You know, in English, hardening sounds like it's getting solid. In Hebrew, it's getting weighty. It's both what you experience in God's presence, kavod, but it's also the sense of judgment. So he is he is hardening, he is weighing his own heart. Remember that weighing of the heart thing that would be in their minds. This is his choice that God is working with. So he's going to punish them. So mud bricks. Everybody played with mud when they were kids, right? It was a lot of fun. Mud cakes. And you can make a lot of cool stuff out of mud cakes. They still, when I was a boy in El Paso, actually across the river in Juarez, used to make a lot of mud brick homes. You still see natural adobe, which they were very cool in the summer. I mean, real adobe is pretty massive. So let me show you a couple things. So got this from Dr. Hoffmeyer, if you remember his visit. This is typical Egyptians showing how to make mud bricks, everything from getting the water and the mud and the clay and the people working it. Dr. Hoffmeyer and others have pointed out the skin difference. The Egyptians are very sensitive to that depiction. So a Egyptian is always gonna, what color are they gonna depict themselves as? Red, because they're men. That's the color of outside. I've got a nice tan. It sounds weird to us, but they're the red men. Whereas foreigners, especially Asiatics and Libyans, tend to be yellow, because that's the color of a woman. A woman is supposed to be inside, taken care of. So it was a way of sort of showing dominance on the part of the Egyptians, but also the inherent cowardice of a foreigner. So it does look like, in this case, that they have yellow-skinned men that are working alongside the Egyptians to make it. So we can look at the mud bricks, and they're still quite extensive in Egypt. This is actually a picture I took last time I was at Ramses II's mortuary temple. So as close as we could get to this event. This is where Ramses II, who Moses knew, wanted to be worshipped forever. It's in pretty bad state, but they're rebuilding a lot of it. And so they had just made these mud bricks. Now this is modern archaeology doing restoration work. And I thought the photo would turn out better than it is. Yeah, that's a more recent one. So what stands out is they're bigger than our bricks. They're not quite rectangular. I don't know. I mean, you could see it. It's not quite square either. They definitely have the plant matter in there, the straw, and it was explained to me in school that that's by intention. You don't ever make them without that plant matter, because as it decays, it helps preserve the brick. Now, it doesn't rain often in Egypt, so you can get many years from these, but generally what the Egyptians do is whitewash it. They put limestone over it to give it a water sealing. But like we said before, it was a giant bureaucratic system where, you know, if they're building a pyramid, certain groups are cutting the stones, other groups are moving the stones, other groups are putting them in place, other groups are making bread and beer and collecting onions and fish in order to feed the workers. It's this giant machine of the state that's functioning, and it's pretty polished. If today we could take our entire workforce, I mean everybody from engineers, artists, workers, everybody in our country, and dedicate them towards one project, what could we get done? I mean, if you could, through the power of Pharaoh, convince everybody that this was their life's mission, this was a guarantee for some afterlife, you could do amazing things. When you see the pyramids, you see, wow, they got that done in a hurry, too. Everybody doing it. But Pharaoh is interrupting that because he wants to make it harder. Again, they're playing up this weighing down. He wants to weigh down the Hebrews, and as he's doing it, he's weighing down his own soul, his own people. And it should not have been their responsibility to collect the straw. They have to make the same number of bricks, obviously, and they have to get the straw in it, or they're going to crumble and they won't make their quota. So that's pretty straightforward. We okay? Yeah. Those sod houses, didn't they cut them out of the plains? We used to have old sod houses around in Friona that they had done it in the early 1900s, but in Clovis over there, I mean, there's some clay over there.
Yeah, there is clay.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's strange to think it wasn't that long ago. I mean, in the time frames we're talking biblically, that Texans were living a whole lot of different life out here on the frontier.
But as far as I know, that Adobe part is still there. We built onto it, but it's still there.
Yeah. It's both amazingly durable and also fragile at the same time. Because when you're doing excavations and you start finding mud brick, think about it. You're digging down and then you find mud brick. So how do you distinguish between the mud above it and mud brick? It can be a challenge. It's usually the straw and it's the wrong kind of and stratification and stuff like that. But yeah, in Jericho, if you ever go in Israel, one of the oldest towers, it's like 10,000 BC. It's crazy old. And it's mud brick. And so the Palestinian Authority, in their brilliance, wanted to get tourists to come. So they made a big outdoor museum with mud brick. And every archaeologist in the world said, it still rains sometimes in Israel, and there's still water. And what do you think happens when water runs down mud brick? And it's 10,000-year-old mud brick. Yeah, so that tower's in bad shape. They've built a metal roof over it, but it's not. It should never be exposed to the elements. But anyway, so this is what they had. This is what they're doing. Pharaoh is again trying to punish. This is what Pharaoh says: "I will not provide any more straw for you. Go and get it yourself. Find it wherever you can, but you must produce just as many bricks as before." So the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt in search of stubble to use as straw. This is not being given to them. They're going to have to collect it. Egypt is rich in a lot of things, produce, gold, but it is incredibly poor when it comes to wood. There's virtually no native wood that's worth anything. There's a little acacia and there's some palms, but you can't do much. So the Egyptians are very creative, like we were out in the West, with what to burn to cook dinner. You know what I'm talking about? Cow patties. Yep. Straw and anything that comes like that are used for animals. This is not stuff they're throwing away. So on the one hand, Pharaoh has made it much harder. He's asking them to do this shouldn't be required of them. This is where it's oppressive slavery. The Egyptian people doing this, making bricks, are not having to do it. And in some fashion, they're going to have to negotiate, barter to get this from the Egyptians. Meanwhile, the Egyptian slave drivers continue to push hard. Meet your daily quota of bricks, just as you did when we provided you with the straw, they demanded. Then they whipped the Israelite foremen they had put in charge of the work crews. "Why haven't you met your quota, either yesterday or today?" they demanded. So the Israelite foreman went to Pharaoh and pleaded with him. But we're sort of skipping over the ugly part of that. Egyptians are pretty good at recording a lot of daily life experiences for us, especially earlier on in their history. They really enjoyed life. And so we think people think they're obsessed with death. It's really the opposite. They loved life so much they didn't want it to end. And so we get a lot of little snapshots and vignettes of life. And one of the favorite motifs they use is when the tax collector comes, because all Egyptians had to pay taxes. And invariably, somebody's getting beat. And they show us people tied against posts and the tax collectors with rods beating people. So if they'll do that to their own people to pay their taxes, imagine what they'll do to foreign-born Semites that they're afraid are the new Hyksos that will try to overthrow the country. This is a dark side of human behavior. Does anybody know what a capo is? I've heard of a capo. C-A-P-O, capo. I was shocked to learn in World War II in the concentration camps, there was a level of guards that watched the Jewish prisoners and made sure they were kept in line, and they were brutal to them. And these capos were other Jews. It's one of the worst things a Jew will ever call another one. So these guards that were working for the SS were kind of like these foremen, right? They take on these responsibilities, so they'll be the last to go to the gas chamber. It's a dark side of humanity. But obviously, these guys are as much a prisoners of the system. They don't collect straw. They don't control the wheels of bureaucracy, but it's being used to grind them, and then they're supposed to pass that on through the system to abuse their own people. Here, they plead with Pharaoh, "Please, don't treat your servants like this," they begged. "We are given no straw." But the slave drivers still demand, "Make bricks." "We are being beaten, but it isn't our fault. Your own people are to blame." So this is getting out of hand. I mentioned Pharaoh is the chief priest. He's the chief general. He's also the chief justice. He's the Supreme Court. So depending on who you are, where you are, in the legal process, the final appeal always goes to Pharaoh. But Pharaoh shouted, "You're just lazy, lazy. That's why you're saying, 'Let's go and offer sacrifice to the Lord.' Now get back to work. No straw will be given to you. You must still produce the full quota of the bricks." The Israelite foremen could see that they were in serious trouble when they were told, "You must not reduce the number of bricks you make each day." As they left Pharaoh's court, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who were waiting outside for them. The foreman said to them, "May the Lord judge and punish you for making us stink before Pharaoh and his officials. You have put a sword into their hands, an excuse to kill us." Wow, what a great day this was. I traveled all this way back to Egypt, thought I was going to get killed the whole time. I convinced you all this is what we wanted to do. You abandoned me. So me and my brother try to convince him. He's not convinced. And he's putting the pressure on you. And just like good little capos, stooges, you are now blaming me. And oh, by the way, God, what was the point of all this? You spoke to me. You told me your great unending name. You told me all this stuff. And you sent me to do this, and it's just made it worse. Remember, the Egyptians had a revolution of Semites in their country before the 19th dynasty, but Semites, Canaanites, had moved into the eastern delta, and they had overthrown the Egyptian government. The Egyptians hated them. Egyptians eventually drove them out, but they are the same ethnicity, same language as the Hebrews. And so any kind of behavior like this is going to smack of another rebellion. The Egyptians killed every Hyksos they could find. It's not going to be a stretch for them to try to do it for Hebrews. So how does that all work? Did God have this as a test run? Did he know what was going to happen? How is God in control with everybody making these choices? Big theological question. Who's in charge here? God's in charge. Yes. But what a terrible way to teach me to trust you. You send me, and it's a royal disaster. He knows people. And he, in fact, did tell Moses it's not going to work. But it's easy to forget when you're standing there in front of, little God and everybody. Yeah. And the thing about it is they represent, in many ways, just humanity. It's not just that they're Jewish. It's they're the kids on the reality TV show that have the spotlight shining on them at that moment. We as humans are always this way. When hard things come, when things of God don't go the way we imagine them to go, we get really squirrely. We know God's in control. We know he's all powerful from this and other places. But we also think we know exactly what he's supposed to do. And this story is doing a lot of things. It's telling us about the exchange. It's giving us insight into Pharaoh's character. But it's also showing that nobody is ready for this. The elders aren't ready. Moses and Aaron aren't ready. Pharaoh obviously is not ready. And even the Israelites themselves are not ready. They want freedom. And what's God wanting them to do? Worship. And they're two different things. This avad, that's why it's so important to be a worshiper, to be a servant, to be a priest. It is to be who we were made to be. Exactly. Even if all the chains were broken and they were given all the straw in all the world, they don't know how to be free. The Egyptians don't either, but so I know a lot of this detail is foreign and weird, but I think when you begin to look at it on this level, you see it's a lot like we go through today. We want God to do things much, much faster. And the way we told him to do them, right? Let's not have a long conversation with this guy. He's a jerk. Just get the deed and let's go, right? We don't need to come back, but that's not how it's going to work. The other thing that I think truly would have shocked everybody is the way Yahweh is coming into Egypt and he's overthrowing the whole system. I mean, this just didn't happen, that a God from the desert would come in and destroy the power or show the weakness of all the other gods. I mean, realize they think conflict between nations are wars between gods. One God doesn't come take over another God's country. They may fight, but that land belongs to the gods that people worship there. So this is revolutionary in a profound way. And I don't think even Moses realizes God's plan at this point to upset the entire sort of world order that had been going on for well over 1,000 years. Yes. Yeah. There was a sign I saw in Israel. So the Jews have a belief, based on their experience, that no matter where they are, eventually everybody will turn against them and they'll have to flee. And so you look at their long history, right, from Babylon to Persia to Egypt to Rome to Greece to Spain to North Africa to Europe to Poland to Ukraine. They thought Poland was the new Garden of Eden. They would always be able to exist there. And sure enough, anti-Semitism came back again and people turned on them again and they were driven out. And there was a sign in Israel that had a picture of New York and it just said, it'll happen again. And the Jews like, no, we will never be driven from America. But the Israelis were reminding them there's only one land that God promised us, and it's not New York, it's not Amsterdam, it's not Warsaw, it's not Grenada, it's Israel. So that's a hard way to live, but with God, they have survived. The world has done their worst. Egypt will do their worst. And Egypt's not even very far on the list of people that tried to wipe them out. But nobody has succeeded, not for lack of trying. So it's always just my opinion, but I believe true followers of Christ, we have a responsibility to decide with these people. Doesn't mean Jews are perfect. It does not. But they are God's firstborn, and we are adopted into this family, and we have to stick up for the family. So, but it's hard. I'll throw a commercial in for a minute. I don't know if I told you all this. So we're continuing our 140 blessings, and so we're trying to be a blessing for local. Like inside here, we do HEB cards. We're going to be paying off kids that are in their arrears for their lunches, which will be good. And then we went and helped the flood victims, so we do regional stuff. We're doing a little international stuff, just a little. There's a playground that Steve's kids played at when the rockets were headed their way. And so we're going to redo that playground in the memory of Sadie and Simon. So God forbid there's a next, war and kids are going to the playground. You know what? We just help them. But in the same way, there are Christians in Israel that are struggling too. And so we've invited some Bethlehem Christians to come to our church on December 21st. And these are Christians that have been in Bethlehem for generations. I mean, they're woodworkers, icon makers, painters. And because of the war and because of the way Muslims treat them, they're starving to death. So they're going to bring their Christmas nativities and candles, everything you could imagine to us. And we're trying to raise support for them to go back. They're very much, these Bethlehem Christians, very much clan oriented. It's like, I'm dealing with the Lama clan, which everybody in Bethlehem knows who they are, which is funny. In El Paso, Tony Lama is where we all got our boots. And here, these are the Lama brothers. I know the Lama brothers, you're not the Lama brothers. So they're going to have a worship service with us. It's going to be really, really special. As we do Bethlehem night, we're going to have Bethlehem Christians. So yeah, we're blessing all sides. We're Christians. We're helping Christians. We're helping Israelis. And it's a good time to be part of our church. Absolutely, yeah. I call it shopping for Jesus. So save a little bit of your Christmas. I tried to get them here earlier because I know 21st is late and a lot of us have bought our Christmas gifts, but please save a little, or if you don't want anything, just, I'm buying crosses, little handheld crosses that they make. They're not the most elaborate, but we're going to give them away to every child that we can find to actually have olive wood from Bethlehem. At least I hope. I've been to Bethlehem. There's not that many trees. I don't know where you guys are getting all this olive wood, but I'll have faith. Better not say China anywhere on this stuff, but yeah. Making bricks without straw, they call it. Yeah. So anyway. Well, we'll stop there tonight. Any questions? Hopefully a little different than we imagined, but also more real. When we listen to God and it doesn't go right, it's just the beginning, not the end. Yeah. God likes us, needs us to go through it several times. There's going to be a lot of visits to Pharaoh. Yes, good catch. That's a very Egyptian way of describing Egyptian. The word for sin in Egyptian is wekadu, which is both body odor and sin. So if it smells bad, it's not just body odor, it's like a rotten soul. That's why they work so hard to preserve the body after death, because they don't want that wekadu to rot the body. If you smell when you die, you're sinful. So again, beautiful little Egyptianism there. Egyptians say you stink to me. Yeah. Egyptians are obsessed with cleanliness, which if I was living in the Middle East, I would be glad for too, you know? Kind of wish that had stayed as part of their culture. It hasn't, let me assure you. So, but, yes, ma'am. We don't think so. We think it's probably his son. And I'll admit, it's some conjecture on our part. It's only the line that said, those that want to kill you have died. So we assume there has been a passing of the dynasty. You know, as much as I say it's Ramses II, he's our best guess. We don't know for sure. Moses is leaving his name out, probably to insult him. But all the evidence, language, archaeology kind of points to this. In the end, who cares what his name was, right? Moses is the name we want to remember, or God is the name we want to remember. So, all right, let's pray. Gracious Lord, we thank you for the window into how you work with us, how patience from God really looks like. We thank you, O Lord, that you are slow and intentional. You leave room for us to be confused and make mistakes. And unfortunately, even have things get harder. Lord, we read about straw and bricks, but we know this was life and suffering and worry on an existential level. Life meant much less than you intended for it to mean. Lives were thrown away easily. They learned to risk theirs for the sake of a God they barely knew. Help us, so many thousands of years later, to learn to do the same thing. You call us to do the impossible, but you don't tell us it will be easy or done in a day. It will take us listening to you on a much more profound level, trusting you, learning from you, trying to become like you. Father God, as they grew and became the catalyst that changed the destiny of our planet, help us to know you will do no less for those that are called by Christ's name. Help us to have the same perseverance. When the elders abandon us, may we still go ahead. May we still be the Aarons that back up our Moseses when they're scared and frightened. And may we never be the slave drivers that just see the work day to day and miss the movement of God. Much to learn. Please be patient with us and help us, O Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, thank you all very much.